Okay, so item 15. Dave, who's going to do the Linwood pool presentation? Or is anyone? Ah, yes, I'm sure you could. Okay, item 15, wastewater heat recovery. Proposal for Linwood pool.
Oh.
You are?
Nigel Cox from the Head of Regional Sports.
Okay, far away.
That's right. I thought I'd give a brief overview of the background we've got to with the report, because most of it's contained within it. Obviously, we're here today to make, for the Finance Performance Committee of the whole, to make a decision on the CapEx funding of the wastewater heat recovery system. As we go back, obviously the site was selected in May by the Community Board, so 141 Smith Street. Since then, the consultants have been engaged in September, and they've been working through the Balkan location. As part of that, they worked through the energy systems that could be used within the facility. In November, we received a wastewater heat recovery feasibility study that talked about the potential of using wastewater heat recovery over and above the air source system. We have used air source previously at Taiora Kiwi 2, so it's an efficient system, but because of the location of 141 Smith Street, there's the opportunity to use wastewater heat recovery, which is the same system that's being used at the Metro Sports facility. As we went through that, we were developing the concept and the busting and trying to get the estimates of how much it would cost to deliver, so that's why we've got that today. At the same time, there's been a community engagement in December around the pre-concept design for the pool, and we're here today with 4 options to potentially run that wastewater heat recovery. The key part as we go through this is the financial part of it, but also it's the climate change leadership element that we want it to be noted as you go through the benefits and the disadvantages of the report. So the preferred option that we are proposing today is to take a little bit of pain and reprioritise within the existing R&R buildings and program for rec and sport, so not asking for new money. Didn't want to reduce the scope of the project, help pay for it out of the existing budget, and mindful of asking for new money as well. So the preferred option is obviously to fund out of the R&R program. The advantage of that is it reduces the energy required by a third, so 290 kilowatts per year saving, which transforms to 37 tonnes of a carbon saving per annum. Also creates an operational saving of $41,000 per year. Reprioritisation within the existing CapEx budget, doesn't require new funding through the annual plan process, and it also allows the concept design to continue on for sign-off by the Community Board in the middle of this year, so it doesn't cause any delays to the program. The disadvantage is obviously there's the potential negative public perception of the increase in the budget for the Linwood pool, the deferral of planned building renewals in FY21 for the RSU program. And I guess as we go through that, it's not an easy decision we've made, but as we go through the building part of it, it's the deferral of replacement of toilets, changing rooms, gutters, the likes that we can sweat off. We have been doing that since the earthquake, and we'll continue to do that. It's certainly not any of the high priority mechanical and stuff that will close the doors. So it will have an impact on look and feel for the customers, but in terms of it, it's one of the options that we have to go through. And I guess that's kind of the summary of it as we go through. Obviously there's a technical and feasibility report that's attached, there's some cost estimates. We want to do this as quick as we can. Obviously I would have liked to have brought it earlier, but I wanted to have certainty around cost, and we didn't get that till late in the piece last year, so hence I'm here today.
I mean, it seems like you're presenting this as an extra cost, and you use the word pain, and that we'll have to go without some other stuff, but it seems to me this is an investment. And I'm unsure why, given the impact on reduced energy use, obviously reduction in emissions, this is not seen as an investment in the future. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, in turn, I agree it is an investment in the future. The budget was set in 2015 as part of the LTP, so it didn't have this as a consideration of that. The impact is if we don't do it within the existing budget, then the options are that we would need to reduce the scope within the project, because there's $1 million that would need to go towards this as opposed to other areas.
But there's a payback for this.
There is a payback.
It's $1 million, let's say, upfront cost, and you're saving 40-odd thousand a year
Yep.
against that.
Yes.
Yep.
I think that's why the unit are recommending it, because they see it as an investment.
I just think the way you're presenting it probably could change a bit. Pauline?
Yeah, thank you. Can you just talk me through what the air source heating involves? Obviously it uses electricity, it's different than a ground source heating.
Yes.
So how does the air source heating work? Takes the temperature of the air?
It does, takes the temperature of the air, a bit like a heat pump that you'd have at home. So it takes the temperature of the air, works through that. So to get that up to temperature, it takes quite a bit of electricity. By using the thermal mass from the wastewater heat recovery, it means it's not heating from such low levels, so it makes the air source more efficient to do.
Right. So when you convert that electricity use to carbon emissions, don't we use pretty much 90-something% clean electricity from sustainable energy?
Yeah, we do. In the report, it talks about I think it's the ECA funding model that they've used, that calculator, to calculate the carbon savings that they go through by the reduced energy consumption.
Seems quite, I just can't quite figure how, if we're using sustainable electricity, how it actually equates to that level of carbon emissions, which I think is really important, because, I mean, option 4 could just be to use the air source heating. Sure, you don't save the OPEX, but that OPEX is going to take 20 to 25 years to recoup anyway. So I think the key is, how did you arrive at that emissions, carbon emissions?
So in attachment A on the back page, it talks about how the carbon savings were calculated. It talks about using the ECA carbon calculator, that's industry standard, so they've used that to calculate the carbon footprint savings from Allied Energy, who provided the feasibility and the summary document.
Well, we have to accept that figure, but I thought if electricity was sustainable, it wouldn't have the carbon emissions.
I can go back in.
I think what Pauline is saying is that if we used heat pumps, obviously that's using clean electricity, but what the heat recovery will do is use less electricity. So that's where the savings in carbon emissions comes from.
If there are carbon emissions in the first place, is my question.
I just say that, except that of course council has one of its energy suppliers is Genesis,
It's only
which has
a
Huntley.
very small proportion.
No, because we're in the all of government scheme, it has quite a good proportion of Genesis Energy as our electricity provider. So we're currently paying Genesis Energy to burn coal to supplement North Islanders while we use the South Island power.
Yes,
The standard that's used is an industry standard for right across every every electricity supplier in the country.
Yeah. So that must be where you get your carbon emission statistic from?
It is, that's the calculator that is used.
Yeah.
So to get us, that's where it's come from, as opposed to being Christchurch or this specific project, specific calculator for what it would be.
Aaron?
That was my first question, was where does that come from when you can almost 100%. I know that it's a shared load model and that's an economic model, but the electricity from the dams down south doesn't flow past here to, I mean, it doesn't come from the North Island back the other way to heat out, no. It just doesn't. There's so much electricity generated clean in the South Island. Otherwise, why are we going to encourage everyone to go electric cars if it's going to have thousands of tonnes of carbon? Doesn't it defeat itself? Whereas the South Island is perfectly placed because it has good renewable energy sources. That's why I'm surprised that that number's in here. So that was my first question, and then my other one was around the cost per annum saving is the 41,000, but versus the capital cost, which is it equates to 25.9 years to pay it back. What about the maintenance cost over that time? Wouldn't mechanical gear like this be fully replaced within a 25-year life, or its maintenance would be about the same cost as its capital cost again?
It is in terms, so the heat source pumps are still required, so there's no benefit of the operational cost of replacement of the items, which are still using heat source pumps, but just at a higher level, so they're more efficient, so you've got less of them. So there's no additional cost of maintaining the wastewater heat recovery versus
right.
the air source.
So there is no additional maintenance costs on that gear over that period?
No.
None at all?
Not the transfer of the gear that would be in there versus changing to this.
So they were the same. Okay, cool. That was the other one.
Sarah?
What's the life expectancy for a sort of a council pool facility? It's around 50 years.
50 years.
So in theory it'd be paid off in less than about half the life of the pool. But the money we would be saving is OPEX, which is actually much more rates intensive than the CAPEX we'd be spending up front. Is that right? Yeah. Okay.
Jamie and then Jimmy.
Two there. Thank you for that. Two questions from me. One, and what's been touched on by all of the last councillors, actually everyone, the payback period. I'm just keen to know whether or not there is a guide for staff around what payback sort of time frame is acceptable. Is there something that we work with? If the payback period is 10 years, that's fine. Have we got any guiding policy or thought process around what we deem to be feasible, and at what point is it no longer feasible from a cost perspective? And the second question really is, and this isn't a loaded one, so please don't take it this way, the question, but it's always all well and good to say we'll find it from the existing budget, which obviously means, yes, there's not a rates impact, but it does mean something drops off, and it's very hard, I find, and I don't know if others share this, to then make that decision now. It feels palatable, but it just defers the hard question, which is what drops off. So have staff done any work, or will there be any recommendations around what is likely to miss out then as a result of that? So one, guiding policy around payback period, and two, what does come off as a result of the staff recommendation, or what would be recommended?
Yeah, so about the payback period, obviously there's the financial payback period, which is calculated through this report, and it's a conservative estimate as they go through. I guess the other part of this is the role in climate change leadership. So there's the financial payback, but then there's the other part, hence we've gone down that pathway. In terms of there's no guiding policy that says you will do this. It's a common sense approach and comes back. Similar to previously when we brought the chlorine generation, Toilet QE2, we brought that to the table because that had a significant payback period. That's the first one. The second part, we're currently going through detailing the conditional assessments for FY21's R&R program. That needs to be loaded by May this year. So the staff are going through gathering the information of all the assets, and there's $203 million in the Wreck and Sport area. So have that information clear and loaded by May this year. So we don't have all the detail yet because it's a piece of work they're going through, but certainly indications are going through. It's likely to be, in terms of, like I said, replacement toilets, carpet and changing rooms. So look and feel, certainly nothing critical from a shutting the doors perspective.
Cool. Well, I don't know, there could be $1 million on the toilets.
Yeah, we go through.
Okay, thank you.
Jimmy?
Thank you. The first one regarding the paragraph 5.13. Who are those, or who is their potential, possible third party? Who are those?
Right, in terms of ECA,
Yeah.
in terms of what I've spoken to, also have talked to the Rada Foundation, and then going from there about how they could invest into this. The Rada Foundation conversation around investment into these types of initiatives with the payback period over time. But I guess what this, if a decision was made today, gives us surety to pursue those third-party funding options, knowing that it's going ahead, and obviously that would offset the amount the council would contribute to the wastewater heat recovery.
Okay, thank you. Second question is regarding to the current the council the kind of project program, except this kind of Linwood pool to use this kind of new initiative. Have any other project will be used in the near future or not?
Yes, so Metro Sports is using the system.
Yeah. But they already on the budget.
They're working
only
through
this
that.
one, essentially.
I dare say in terms of Hornby, if they were located in a different location, we're looking at using the same system, Jimmy. In terms of, but internationally, this is used quite a bit, and that's in the report as well. But nothing in New Zealand yet. But Metro Sports has committed to using wastewater heat recovery.
Okay, thank you.
Sarah?
Happy to move.
Oh, okay. Good move. Do I have a seconder? Seconded Yanni. Yes. Did you second it?
Yeah, happy
Okay.
to.
Second and a question, yep.
Oh yeah, just so given we've got the service centre next door, have we got any estimates about hooking into that as well for the power? I know that in the report it makes reference to the library, potential future library, but yeah, do we have any sort of idea of hooking it up to that service centre that's currently there?
Yes, so in the report it talks about there's 12,000 kilowatts available from this. In terms of then the estimate for the pool or this facility usage is 800, so there's capacity there to do additional facilities on top of that, whether that would be the on the nursery side across the road or rugby league or those. So there's the potential to connect others to the system and utilising the same outdoor plant infrastructure.
I'm just trying to understand from agreeing to it with the pool, how future-proofed it, I mean not future-proof, but how, if those facilities could hook in either earlier or would they need to do it at the same time, or what would be the process?
Certainly in terms of they'll be able to connect into it, in terms of the development plan for the service centre library, in terms of we'd need to do that at the same time of what you're going to do for that particular site and work your way through it. So you don't have to connect now, they can connect in the future to it if they wish to. Okay.
Phil?
Thanks, Nigel. I just wanted to ask you about the perception of having a pipe for this heat exchange right sort of presumably around the actual wastewater line. So does that not present some problems of perception and possible any real problems for the future in terms of we're running a sewer alongside the heat exchanger?
I don't believe so in terms of the connection of the heat exchanger comes off the sewer line and then connects back to it. In terms of across the park, I think the report covers that, so no, it's all underground and I don't believe there is any.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Mike, yes, sorry.
Thank you. Obviously, we've set the budget already for this. So I guess the question is there going to be any other $1 million surprises coming for this pool? Or are we expecting this to be the last increase we see on the budget?
I think no surprises coming up until to go through. This is the one to have the concept designed off in the middle of the year so we can progress with this. Bear in mind, you could decide not to do this today, so it's an option for you to work through, but I don't think there's anything else that we could surprise you with.
Pauline?
Sorry, just repeating my question earlier, that from the geotech report initially has shown it's a challenging site. Are we expecting any surprises there compared to what we've budgeted?
Not that I'm aware of as they go through. So they have done additional geotech work on the site in terms of over and above what they've done previously to make sure there's no surprises before we do and finalise the concept design and then go to market for the people who are going to build it.
Apparently, we've been told this morning that we won't know till next week the results of that.
Of the Linwood site to go through in terms of that. Certainly not from the project perspective because we commissioned additional technical work to make sure that we were aware of all the ground conditions to go through.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any issues with the local community in terms of any kind of consultation around putting this type of technology into a community area?
No, in terms of as you go through because it's underground. At the same time, we're doing the work on the parks and that. So, no, there should be no issues around how we're going to heat or provide energy to the facility as we work through that.
And when you talk about the third-party funding, you mentioned ECA and RATA. Have you spoken to central government at all?
No, not yet. We haven't approached anyone in terms of specifically with this project to go through, but certainly through our teams and council, they're aware of approaches we can make. And if there's the opportunity there, we'll do that as well.
And in terms of, you mentioned Metro Sports are looking at putting this in. What kind of interaction have you had with them?
They are putting it in terms to go through interaction. I sit on the control group for Metro Sports, so going through that, and we've shared information about the reasons they're doing it at Metro Sport because of the location of the sewer through down the main street. So, yeah, fully involved as we work through, and same with the council staff. So Mike Burke and his team have reviewed and provided advice through to Allied, who did the feasibility study for us.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, well, we've got a mover and a seconder, so I'm happy to open it up for debate. Sarah, would you like to open the debate?
Just very briefly, I mean, while we might not make this decision on a purely financial basis, as the payback is a longish one, it still does make financial sense for ratepayers when we look at the long-term OPEX savings. We also have strategic priorities around climate change leadership and becoming a sustainable 21st century city. And this is an opportunity to show the leadership that we're expecting from others. Frankly, it's a no-brainer, and I'm really happy to vote in favour.
Okay, thank you. Pauline?
Yeah, I mean, the thing, I feel that I'm sort of between a rock and a hard place on this because it is, as Councillor Templeton's just referred to, the climate change principles. We must respect those and we must honour those because we're trying to lead in that area. And indeed, the operational savings are logical, especially for a community facility. But we've still got to find $1 million and something's going to have to give. And we don't have the specifics on that, and this is what always tends to come back and bite us. And I know there's other areas where we've had to change the scope in order to find that $1 million. So I find this very difficult to, very difficult decision to actually decide between these two options. However, we've asked the pertinent questions. You've assured us that any reduction in services and repairs and stuff will be minor and probably dispersed through the program. So in light of that, I'm going to support this today, but reluctantly finding another $1 million for a community facility.
Phil?
Thank you, and I'm going to support it too. I just think that we're facing huge climate change. We've got no idea of the real future energy costs. We know from the report that in fact a pool like this uses up 5 times as much energy as most, say, equivalent large buildings. And so it just seems to me, I agree with Sarah Templeton, that in fact this in effect is a no-brainer. If we're really going to show leadership around climate change, which is one of our key strategies as a council.
Glenn?
Thank you. Just looking at the calculator, looking at the CapEx OPEX equation and cost benefit, if this is not going to have a direct ratepayer impact, then if we assume the life of the asset is say 50 years, the calculator suggests that would be a saving of $2,075,000. So because that's the OPEX saving per year, so you multiply that out by 50. So it seems to me if we're putting in an extra $1 million now for that saving, we know that it's actually the OPEX costs that really hit us in the rates. So all that we can do to bring that down over the life of an asset, I can go with this.
Yanni?
Yeah, I strongly support this. I think this just makes sense using an existing resource rather than using new resources through our electricity system. So I think the sustainability argument in this is compelling, right? And I would point out that, it's ironic that we find funding for private developers in the central city to have sustainability measures, but we struggle to get funding for our own facilities. We should lead by example and be proud to do so. And if we can't afford to fund private people to get sustainability measures, then we should definitely be doing it ourselves. So I think the question about where the funding comes from, we've heard that there'll be operational savings, and I think that, that will pay itself off over time. And so, yeah, I think this is just a no-brainer. It makes sense. I have concerns that staff have addressed through any potential increase in odour, but staff have reassured us that there will be no odour issues with this, and that being said, then I'm really happy to support this.
Mike?
Thanks. I think it's really important actually when we're building these facilities we take into account sustainability and the whole of life costs. I guess what we've got here is already a set budget and we're looking to increase that by roughly 5%. And so, do we increase it or do we just look at the current budget as it stands and work within it? It is not a straightforward question because we do it here. Are we going to do it for every single building that we've got a budget set for and say, actually, here's a great idea for sustainability, we'll add another 5% to that project cost, and where does it stop? And our budgets are tight, and every time we do something like this, and we've done it before, something's going to have to miss out. Another community may have to miss out on something that they need. So I think we just need to be a little bit careful when we say, oh, it's going to repay itself after 25 years, oh, it's only $1 million. It all impacts and impacts ratepayers in the communities we represent.
Dave?
Yes, thank you. Look, I'm fully supportive of using new innovative technology for heat recovery and heating of our facilities. There are a number of them coming forward, and I'm always reminded perhaps of some of the groundwater heating options that have been proposed for various facilities, and building something like an ice skating rink next door to it just negates all of the energy that is used in this thing. So yeah, I support that. I'd just make one comment, I think, tongue-in-cheek, where there's been a wee bit of a conversation about climate change and how we should be adapting to that. If climate change predictions are correct, 1 metre sea level rise will affect the city up to Lancaster Park, so perhaps this will be underwater in 100 years' time.
Okay. Any other comments to make? Aaron, have you been? No?
Yeah. Sorry. It's the that's going to be the new foreshore pool. The hot pools will be at Linwood at that point, David. So my two comments. I do struggle with this because of. I agree with Mike. It's $1 million. It's that money on the project now. It takes 26 years to pay itself back. I don't think we've had a pool in Christchurch that's not been fully redeveloped and fixed up and changed over inside of 26 years. We do them all, and the Kiwi 2 that opened in '74 was a bit of a dump by the 80s and needed a massive overhaul. And had a lot of money spent on it. Then was turned into a really awesome pool again. Jelly Park opened in '64. It's had 3 complete remodels in that amount of time, and the cost just keeps going and going and going. So you won't see your return of cost before the place is completely remodelled and fixed up. That's just the nature of the quality we like to keep our assets at. We don't sweat our assets for 25 to 50 years as a pool and not touch them. That just does not happen. And we've never had that in our city's history, and I can't see us changing. And then the other question I have is around the carbon emissions and the savings on the electricity when the South Island uses 98% hydro electricity, and then we have some other bits and pieces. We basically don't have dirty electricity in the South Island. We create good, clean electricity, and so that should be our one of the song sheets we use, but at times we flip it the other way and use the eco model to apply to make something look good. So I'm sometimes dubious of using those equations. If the pool was in the North Island, yes, it would have a completely different outcome for the environment, but not in the South Island. This is a really clean place for electricity. In fact, one of the cleanest in the entire world. So for anyone on the other side of the world now with a large business looking to move to another country, come here if you're a greenie. Come to the South Island, set up, you'll be welcome.
Dion?
I support the principle of the idea. I think it's a really cool innovation, and I would have loved to have seen more of these innovations as we started to do projects and we signed off on them at the starting point for the budgets. So from that point of view, I'm actually not going to support the resolution today. Because I think we're going, from my perspective, a little bit back to front. I think we should have gone and sort of asked what sort of funding is there available at the central government level or other funding sources first, and then said, hey, look, we've found this funding source, we've got this great innovation. Because the point that I'm trying to make on this is that we do have existing budgets. I'm very uncomfortable with just having a resolution saying it'll be reprioritised within an existing budget for financial year 21 without actually seeing some data on what that is. So I just sort of want to sort of crack down on those kind of things, because we are probably going to face a tail end at some point in time and go, how are we going to get that money across the line or whatever. When we talk about financial point of view, I've just sort of done some rough numbers. It's about, this $1 million will be from some sort of borrowing, so it's about 50,000-ish, or actually about $46,000 for interest on that over a 30-year repayment period. So I mean, from a financial point of view, it doesn't really cover a heck of a lot of money there. So I mean, I do support the idea and principle, and from the from the climate change bit, I really support that. But I would have liked to have seen the data first and then make the decision.
Any other Are you going to finish off, Sarah? Okay, well, I'll just say my piece. I mean, this is really difficult. It's, I think, quite frankly, you needed to do more work on this paper. I think it needed to have a much better investment case. You needed to have spoken to third-party funders before you brought it. And it's just, on the balance of risks, it doesn't quite stack up for me. I mean, the repayment would probably be about 8% a year, which would be $80,000 a year to repay the principal. So the payback, is actually getting out towards 25, 30 years. So I could support this, but not in its current state. If you came back in a month and said, okay, we've spoken to these parties, we've got some third-party funding, this is a long-term investment. I'm not seeing a lot of the sustainability people that we've got inside the organisation promoting this as part of a bigger investment framework. So I'm a little bit like Dion, just struggling to support this on what's being presented today. Sarah?
Thanks. So one of the lessons really from this is that we need to make sustainable technologies part of the scope at the start of a project for all our new builds, and to make sure that the budget is set appropriately. If we decide not to go ahead now and take it out of the current budget, then actually it's not going to happen, because we're not going to change the scope of this pool once again. It's already been cut down from the original scope that we talked at the beginning of the project. All we're doing is deferring some maintenance and sweating some assets, is what we've been told. We're not stopping any communities from getting any new equipment at this point. And it's all very well to say that we use clean electricity, but actually as a council we voted on going for the all of government contract, well, some people did, some of us didn't, which has a large component of Genesis Energy burning coal, and we are continuing to pay them to burn coal no matter where our electricity actually comes from in the lines. Frankly, I'd like to be paying them less and actually keep their coal usage that much lower. Just to talk of this as a financial thing and talk about the assets in that way is actually not enough at this point. We do need to be doing our bit to cut emissions. We have set targets as a council, and people voted on whether we set a net neutrality target as a council for 2030, and we've passed that as a council. This is one way we can start working towards that.
Okay, I will put...
Sorry, may I ask a process question?
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Chair? I'm just thinking, would it matter another month? Because I think the chair of the committee, could we come back? I mean, I think it'd be good to have a good, strong vote on this either way. So well, that leads into a process.
I think, well, we're going to vote on this motion.
Yep.
But
if it's lost, then we'll have to come up with another motion. So perhaps if it's lost, then that might be the time for it, because it looks like there's a will for people to move it through. That'd be my suggestion, Mr. Chair.
I think let's vote on this and then we'll take it from there. Yeah?
Okay, right.
Okay, everyone?
I'm signalling I'm going to change my mind then, so I'll vote against it on those grounds.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? No. Okay, we better have a split there. I think the ayes carried it, but just to make sure.
Councillor Johansson?
Yes.
Councillor Swiggs? Councillor Templeton?
Yes.
Councillor Mungie?
No.
Councillor Keown? No. Councillor Galloway? Is that a yes? Councillor Chen?
Yes.
Councillor Davidson?
No.
Councillor Cotter?
I'm going to abstain because there's no information.
Mayor? Councillor Turner?
Yes.
Councillor Scandra isn't here. Councillor Goff?
No.
Nearly. You nearly got
Councillor
here.
Goff? Yes. Councillor Livingston?
No.
Councillor East?
Yes.
And Councillor Clearwater?
Yes.
Nine for yes, and 3, 4, 5, 6 for no.
Okay, that's carried. Thank you.